I stared at the bank statement on my laptop screen, and my hands went numb. $473,000. Gone. Not invested, not saved, not transferred to some account I didn't know about. Just gone. The transaction was dated exactly 1 year ago. My 35th birthday. The day Michael said he was working late. The day I'd lit candles in our dining room and waited for him with homemade lasagna that went cold on the counter. I should have known something was wrong when he didn't come home until 2 a.m. He smelled like cheap perfume and lies. But I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overreacting, that a successful financial advisor wouldn't throw away his marriage for some woman. I was so stupid, so stupid. The thing that really got me, the thing that made my chest tight with rage, was that I'd found this file by accident. An old backup drive Michael had left in our home office, hidden behind a box of tax returns. I'd been looking for our mortgage documents for a refinance meeting with the bank when I saw it. One of those generic black external drives, nothing special. His password was still the same one he'd been using for 5 years. Ashley 2019, our wedding year. My name. He'd never even changed it. 3 years earlier, things had been different, better, real. We'd bought the house in Westchester in 2021, a 4-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch and a backyard big enough for the garden I'd always wanted. Michael had just made senior partner at Mercer and Associates, the investment firm where he'd worked for 12 years. I remembered him coming home that day, loosening his tie, and lifting me off my feet in the kitchen. His eyes were bright, excited, alive. "We did it, baby," he'd said into my hair. "We actually did it," I'd cried. Happy tears, the kind you cry when life is exactly what you thought it would be. I was working part-time as a copywriter for a marketing firm. Flexible hours, good money, and I could be home when our future kids needed me. We had plans, real plans. A family, a second property maybe, vacations to places we'd only dreamed about. Michael was the kind of husband that makes other women jealous. Not because he was conventionally handsome. He had a crooked nose from a basketball injury in college and thinning hair he was very aware of. But because he actually paid attention. He remembered that I liked my coffee with a splash of oat milk and too much honey. He'd come home from work and ask about my day, really ask, not the perfunctory, "How was your day?" while scrolling through his phone. He brought me flowers every Friday without fail. Yellow roses, because that was my favorite, and he'd learned that years ago when we were just dating in that tiny apartment in Brooklyn. Our families loved us as a couple. My mother, Linda, thought he hung the moon. She'd call and ask about him before she asked about me. My father had welcomed him like a son, which was saying something because my dad wasn't the sentimental type. Michael's mother, Karen, could be overbearing. She had opinions about everything from how I seasoned my food to how often we should visit, but even she seemed genuinely happy for us. We'd settled into a routine that felt like stability. Weeknight dinners together, Sunday mornings at the farmer's market in town, small vacations to Cape Cod or Vermont. I'd decorate the house with the seasons. He'd handle our investments and retirement planning. It was a partnership, the kind you see in movies and assume is fiction. The kind you never think will fall apart. By 2023, we'd been married for 4 years. No kids yet, but we'd started the conversation. We'd done the genetic counseling, picked out names we liked, imagined what our children would look like. Michael wanted a girl first, he said. He wanted to teach her to be strong, to never let anyone diminish her. He said it with such conviction that I believed him completely. That year, Michael was busier than ever. The firm had expanded into cryptocurrency and alternative investments, and as senior partner, he was heading the new division. He'd leave early and come home late, sometimes not until midnight. I understood. Success required sacrifice. I'd say it to myself like a mantra when I'd fall asleep alone, when our bedroom felt too big and too cold. "It's just temporary," he'd tell me. 6 months, maybe a year. "After we get the division stable, I'll scale back, I promise." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? This was the man who'd driven 4 hours to my college graduation, even though his car had a broken radiator. This was the man who'd held my hand through my father's health scare and never once made me feel like I was burdening him. This was the man who'd promised to build a life with me, And I'd watched him keep every promise for almost a decade. I should have seen the signs. I know that now. There were moments, little fractures that I smoothed over in my mind because the alternative was unthinkable. Like the time his wedding ring came back from cleaning and he didn't put it back on for 3 days. Or when he suddenly became obsessive about his appearance, hitting the gym twice a day, getting expensive haircuts he'd never cared about before. Or the time his phone buzzed at dinner and he glanced at it, and his whole face changed for just a second before he smiled at me again. But I was comfortable. I was happy. I was in love with the life we'd built, and I didn't want to look too closely at the cracks because I was terrified of what I'd find underneath. By the time my birthday rolled around in 2024, everything looked perfect from the outside. The house was beautiful, my marriage was beautiful. Our life together was the kind of life I'd imagined when I was a little girl, watching my parents together, thinking that was what I wanted. That was what I deserved. I just didn't know that everything was already rotting from the inside. I'd been staring at that backup drive for 20 minutes, my coffee cold beside the laptop. My hands were shaking. Not from anger yet, just shock. That numb kind of shock where your brain can't quite process what your eyes are seeing. $473,000. The transactions were methodical, dozens of them, spanning from January 2023 to March 2024. Small amounts at first, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, then larger chunks, 25,000, 50,000. Each one routed to an account I'd never heard of, with a name that wasn't ours. The paperwork was all there, hidden in nested folders labeled archive and old files. Michael had been careful, but not careful enough. I should have called someone, my mother, a lawyer, my best friend, Jennifer, but I couldn't move. I just sat there in the dark office, the glow of the laptop screen making everything look poisoned. That's when I heard his car in the driveway. My stomach dropped. It was only 6:47 p.m., and Michael rarely got home before 9 on weekdays. I shoved the drive into my desk drawer, slammed the laptop shut, and tried to breathe like a normal person. Like a wife whose husband hadn't just stolen nearly $500,000. He came through the front door with flowers, yellow roses, my roses. "Hey, babe," he called out, loosening his tie as he walked toward the kitchen. "I got out early. Thought we could order from that Italian place you like. Maybe watch something together?" I stared at him from the office doorway. He looked exactly the same as he had that morning. Expensive suit, the gold watch I'd given him for his 40th birthday. That easy smile that had made me fall in love with him 9 years ago. But now I was seeing him like a photograph with the right filter removed. Like I was looking at a stranger wearing my husband's face. "Sure," I heard myself say. "That sounds nice." He set the flowers down and pulled me into his arms. He smelled like cologne and that cheap perfume again, the one I'd been trying to convince myself was my imagination. Up close, I could smell it underneath everything else. A floral note that definitely wasn't me. My skin crawled, but I made myself stay still. Made myself not pull away. "You okay?" he asked, pulling back to look at me. "You seem off." "Just tired," I lied. "Long day with a client?" "Well, let's relax tonight. Just us." He kissed the top of my head like he always did, and I felt something inside me break into smaller pieces. The next 2 days were surreal. I went to work, smiled at my team, wrote copy for a campaign about luxury vacation homes that suddenly felt like a sick joke. I came home, cooked dinner, pretended everything was normal, while Michael sat across from me at our dining room table and talked about his day. He told me about a meeting with a new client, a golf outing with his colleagues, plans for renovating the master bathroom. All lies. Or at least, all incomplete truths. The real story was happening in that backup drive, in that unnamed account, in whatever life he was living that didn't include me. I barely slept. I'd lie in bed next to him, listening to him breathe, wondering how long this had been happening, wondering if there was someone else, if there was actually a her, not just an account, but a person, a woman he was taking to restaurants, buying gifts for, lying to me about. On the third day, I called Jennifer. She was my oldest friend, the person I'd known since college, the person who'd been a bridesmaid at my wedding. We met at our favorite coffee shop in town, a little place called the Bean Counter that had outdoor seating. "You're scaring me," she said as soon as she sat down. She was wearing her nurse scrubs, having come straight from the hospital where she worked. "You look like you haven't slept in a week. What's going on?" I told her. All of it. The backup drive, the transactions, the money that had vanished into an account with no clear owner. I didn't tell her about the perfume yet. That felt too real, too much like admitting it out loud. Jennifer's face went pale. "Ashley, oh my God! Have you talked to him?" "No. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if I'm overreacting. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe he was investing it somewhere, or $473,000? She leaned forward. "Ashley, that's not an investment he forgot to mention. That's theft. That's fraud. You need to talk to a lawyer, like today." The word lawyer hung in the air between us like a curse. "If I do that, it's real," I said quietly. "Right now, I can pretend I misunderstood something. Once I hire a lawyer, once I start asking questions, it becomes real and it becomes ugly and it becomes over." "It's already over," Jennifer said, not unkindly. "You just haven't admitted it yet." I knew she was right, but admitting it meant admitting I'd been stupid. I'd been blind. I'd built an entire life on the foundation of someone I didn't actually know. How do you come back from that? How do you look your mother in the eye and tell her that the man she'd loved like a son had been lying to her, to all of us, the entire time? That night, I did something I'd never done before. I logged into Michael's email account. His password was still the same, our wedding year, my name. I almost threw up when it let me in. The emails were worse than the money, so much worse. There were messages from someone named Dominique. Dozens of them, dating back 16 months. Love letters, dirty messages. Plans for vacations they'd taken while I thought he was at conferences. Photos I didn't want to see but couldn't stop looking at. One email from Dominique said, "When are you going to tell her? We can't keep doing this. I want to be with you openly." And Michael's response, "Soon. I just need to move some things around first." Move some things around, like my entire life, like our savings, our future, our marriage. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt on my lips. My whole body was shaking. I felt like I was having a heart attack. My chest was tight, my breathing was shallow, and there was this roaring sound in my ears that wouldn't stop. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine, then another. Then I went to the garage, got into my car, and drove. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't be in that house anymore. Couldn't sleep in that bed. Couldn't breathe the same air as him. I ended up at a hotel off Route 7, a cheap place called the Riverside Inn. I paid cash and checked in under my maiden name. The room smelled like old carpet and air freshener, and there was a stain on the ceiling that might have been water damage or might have been something worse. I didn't care. I lay on the bed, still fully clothed, and stared at the popcorn texture of the ceiling and thought about how to destroy the man I'd loved for nearly a decade. My phone buzzed around midnight. "Michael." "Where are you? I'm worried. Are you okay?" I didn't respond. I turned off my phone instead. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to hire a divorce attorney and split everything 50-50 like a civilized person. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this with half our assets and a clean slate to start fresh with Dominique. I was going to burn his entire life to the ground. I just needed to figure out how. I turned my phone back on at 7 a.m. 18 missed calls, 32 text messages, all from Michael. "Ashley, please call me." "I'm sorry, I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry." "Your mother called. She's worried. Just let me know you're safe." "I love you. Please come home." The lies were so smooth, so practiced. I almost believed them. Almost let myself think that maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe there was an explanation I hadn't considered yet. But then I opened my email and saw the message from Dominique that had arrived at 3 a.m. "Baby, your wife isn't answering her phone. Are you sure she knows nothing? We need to move forward with the plan. I can't wait forever." I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I went through Michael's emails systematically, screenshotting everything. The love notes, the vacation receipts, the messages discussing the money, and when they'd be free to be together. Each one was a nail in the coffin. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in a lawyer's office in Westchester. Not just any lawyer, Robert Chen, a divorce attorney with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. Jennifer had called him for me, had vouched for me, had promised he'd see me the same day. His office was all dark wood and leather chairs. There was a photo on his desk of him shaking hands with someone famous. He looked at the screenshots I'd printed out and didn't say anything for a long time. "How long have you known?" he finally asked. 5 days. He nodded slowly. "And he doesn't know, you know?" "No." "Good. That's very good." He leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Hartley, what I'm about to tell you, I need you to be absolutely certain you're ready to hear it. Because once we start this process, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Full stop. We're just fighting about the terms now." I thought about Michael's hands on my face, Michael's voice telling me he loved me, Michael opening that backup drive and methodically, carefully stealing from our future. I thought about the woman named Dominique, probably sleeping in hotels he paid for with money that belonged to both of us. "I'm ready," I said. Robert smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Let's burn this motherfucker down." We spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. He explained the financial crimes, embezzlement from our joint accounts, which was essentially stealing from me. He explained the fraud. Michael had taken out a line of credit against the house without my signature, which was forgery. He explained the options. "We can go after him for everything," Robert said, making notes. "The house, his 401k, his assets at the firm. We can file a police report for the embezzlement. We can request a forensic accounting audit, which will probably expose him at Mercer and Associates, because I guarantee you this wasn't just personal accounts. He was moving money through his business. These kinds of guys always do." "Will I lose the house?" I asked. "Not if we do this right. He's the one who committed fraud. The law doesn't look kindly on that in divorce proceedings. You'll likely get the house, spousal support, and a significant portion of his assets. Child support, too, if you have kids. And if he's been stealing from his clients, which these screenshots suggest, he's looking at criminal charges." The word criminal hung in the air like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. "What do I do now?" I asked. "Go home, act normal. Don't let him know you know anything. I'm going to file for divorce tomorrow morning, and we're going to request an emergency hearing for asset protection. Once those papers are served, the clock starts. He won't be able to move money or hide assets after that." I drove home in a daze. Michael's car was in the driveway. He was pacing on the front porch, and when he saw me pull up, his face crumpled with relief and something else. Fear, maybe. Guilt. "Oh, thank God," he said, pulling me into his arms. "I was so worried. I thought something had happened to you. Why didn't you answer your phone?" I let him hold me. I even made myself relax into his embrace, even though my skin was crawling. "I needed time," I said into his shoulder. "I was upset about something, and I needed to think." "Upset about what? About me?" "Ashley, whatever it is, we can fix it. We can fix anything. You know that." He pulled back and looked at me, and I saw him really clearly for the first time in years. Not the man I'd married, not the man I'd loved, just a liar, a thief, a stranger wearing my husband's face. "Yeah," I said, "I know we can fix it." That night, we had dinner together like nothing was wrong. He'd ordered from the Italian place I loved, and we sat at the dining room table. The same table where I'd waited for him with cold lasagna on my birthday. He told me about his day. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He told me he loved me. I smiled and told him I loved him too. I was an excellent actress, it turned out. It was the easiest lie I'd ever told. The next morning, Michael's phone started ringing. It didn't stop. By 10 a.m., he'd received calls from 3 different people at Mercer and Associates, his boss included. He took them in his home office with the door closed, but I could hear his voice getting higher, more panicked. At noon, the divorce papers arrived, hand-delivered by a process server who showed up at the front door while Michael was still on the phone with his firm's legal department. I watched from the kitchen as Michael's face went white. He looked at the envelope like it was a bomb. "What is this?" he said, though he clearly knew. "I think you should open it," I said calmly. He did. As he read, the color drained completely from his face. I could see his hands shaking. "Ashley, what the hell? Why didn't you—" "You stole from me, Michael. $473,000. I found the backup drive. I found the emails. I found Dominique." He looked like I'd physically struck him. "That's not— I can explain." "You don't get to explain. You get to talk to my lawyer." He tried to backpedal after that, tried to convince me to call Robert off, tried to cry and apologize and promise to fix things. But I'd heard enough lies. I told him he could either stay and wait for the police, or he could leave. He chose to leave. He packed a bag and drove away in his expensive car, and I watched him go with absolutely no feeling at all. By the next week, everything had accelerated. Robert had filed a police report. Mercer and Associates had conducted an internal investigation and discovered that Michael had been embezzling from client accounts for over 2 years. The total amount was nearly $800,000. The firm was cooperating with federal authorities. Dominique's real name was Dominique Marchand, and she was a junior partner at the firm. When Michael tried to disappear, she'd panicked and confessed everything to save herself. The relationship, the money, all of it. She'd agreed to testify against him in exchange for immunity. The news hit the Westchester suburbs like a hurricane. My mother called, devastated and furious in equal measure. Michael's mother, Karen, called to apologize, her voice broken. My father called to ask if I needed anything, and for the first time in years, I actually felt like he understood me. Jennifer came over and brought wine and takeout, and we sat in my living room because the house was mine now, legally speaking, and she held my hand while I cried. "You knew," she said. "You knew what you were doing." "I wasn't going to let him destroy me and walk away," I said. "I wasn't going to be the pathetic woman who let her husband cheat and steal and pretend nothing happened." "You're not pathetic. You're a warrior." 6 months later, Michael was arrested. The federal charges came first: wire fraud, embezzlement, filing false tax returns. Then the state charges followed. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Robert pushed for trial. I testified for 2 days, walking through the financial crimes, the backup drive, the emails. Michael sat at the defendant's table and didn't look at me once. He was convicted on all counts. 18 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. He was ordered to pay restitution to Mercer and Associates, and to me. His law license was effectively finished. No firm would touch him after this. I got the house. I got spousal support for 10 years. I got the satisfaction of seeing his mugshot in the Westchester Daily, seeing his name in articles about white-collar crime, seeing his entire world collapse the way he'd tried to collapse mine. Dominique left New York. Last I heard, she'd moved to California and was working at some tech startup. Michael's mother stopped calling after the conviction. I didn't blame her. It's hard to love someone after you've seen what they're really capable of. A year after the divorce was finalized, I sold the house in Westchester. Too many memories, and I didn't need the reminder every time I walked through the front door. I bought a smaller place in a different town, furnished it exactly how I wanted, and started my life over. I don't think about Michael much anymore. Sometimes I'll see something that reminds me of him. A man in an expensive suit, yellow roses in a grocery store, that particular cologne, and I'll feel a small twist in my chest. But mostly, I just feel grateful that I found that backup drive. Grateful that he was careless enough to leave it there. Grateful that I was angry enough to do something about it instead of just suffering in silence. Jennifer says I should write a book. My mother says I should go on those true crime podcasts and tell my story, but I'm not ready for that yet. Right now, I'm just ready to be alone for a while, to figure out who I am when I'm not someone's wife, to build a life that's actually mine. The backup drive is still in my desk drawer. The files deleted, but the drive itself kept as a reminder. Every time I look at it, I think about that moment when I first opened it, when I didn't know yet that I had the power to destroy someone who'd tried to destroy me. I think about how easy it would have been to let it go, to pretend I'd never found it, to stay in that marriage and slowly disappear. But I didn't, and that made all the difference.